If you think strength is allowed, you've been taught the wrong lesson. The most powerful women I know don't argue, don't announce, don't explain. They simply stop showing up. I want to talk about the quiet power of boundaries and why wise women don't always confront. They conclude. There's a moment that comes after you've over-explained, over-given, and overstayed. A moment when your body tightens, your breath shortens, and something inside you whispers, this costs too much. That whisper is wisdom. The first type of person wise women cut off, silently, is the chronic boundary violator. Not the confused one, not the learning one. I'm talking about the person who knows your limits and leans on them anyway. The one who hears no as a negotiation. The one who calls your boundaries distance, attitude, or drama. Here's the hard truth: boundaries don't fail. People test them. And when someone repeatedly tests your limits, they're telling you something important. They're saying, my comfort matters more than your safety. Wise women believe people the first time. So they stop arguing, they stop defending, they stop teaching grown adults how to treat them. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Silence becomes the boundary. Distance becomes the message. This isn't punishment. This is protection. This is the moment a woman realizes that access to her energy, her softness, her presence is earned, not owed. And when someone keeps crossing the line, the wisest response isn't a louder fence. It's walking away, quietly, firmly, and without apology. The second type of person wise women cut off, silently, is the emotional drain. The one who always needs, always hurts, always collapses, but never grows. This is the relationship where your empathy turns into exhaustion, where every conversation becomes a crisis, and somehow you leave feeling smaller, heavier, emptier. Here's what makes this so painful. These are often good people, wounded people, people you care about. And that's why wise women don't leave loudly. They leave gently because they finally understand a brutal truth. Compassion without boundaries is self-abandonment. You can love someone and still admit that being close to them costs you your peace. You can understand their pain and still refuse to carry it on your back. Wise women learn to listen to their bodies, the tight chest, the constant fatigue, the quiet resentment that creeps in when giving becomes compulsory instead of chosen. At some point, a woman realizes she is not a rehabilitation center. She is not responsible for fixing what another adult refuses to face. And when support turns into obligation, something sacred breaks. So she stops answering every call. She shortens the conversations. She no longer rushes to rescue, not to punish, but to survive, because she knows these relationships are not meant to drain the life out of you in the name of loyalty. Silence becomes her self-respect. Distance becomes her healing. And the most courageous thing she does is choose herself without a speech, without a fight, without guilt. The third type of person wise women cut off, silently, is the one who competes instead of celebrates. The one who smiles at your success but tightens when you shine. The one who claps with one hand and keeps score with the other. This kind of relationship is subtle. There's no obvious cruelty, no dramatic betrayal. Just small cuts, backhanded compliments. Silence where support should be. A shift in energy the moment you grow, heal, or step into your power. And wise women notice energy before words. At first, she questions herself. Am I imagining this? Am I being too sensitive? But over time, the pattern becomes clear. Her expansion makes them uncomfortable. Her confidence feels like a threat. And instead of doing their own inner work, they try to shrink her just enough to feel safe again. Here's the truth wise women learn the hard way. Anyone who needs you small so they can feel big is not safe to keep close. Love does not compete. Love does not resent your growth. Love does not require you to dim. So she stops sharing her dreams, stops announcing her wins, stops inviting someone into moments that deserve joy, not jealousy, not with anger, but with clarity. Because she understands this isn't about malice, it's about misalignment. And rather than confronting and creating unnecessary drama, she lets the distance speak. She protects her becoming. She chooses spaces where her joy is welcomed, not measured, And in that quiet choice, she honors the version of herself she worked so hard to become. The fourth type of person wise women cut off silently is the one who only shows up when it benefits them. The fair weather presence, the conditional connection. The person who disappears when life gets hard but reappears the moment you're useful again. This relationship teaches a painful lesson about reciprocity. You notice it slowly. You're there for their emergencies, their celebrations, their late night breakdowns. But when you need support, real support, there's silence, excuses, distance, a vague promise to check in later that never comes. Wise women stop calling this misunderstanding. They call it information because love doesn't vanish when it's inconvenient. Care doesn't require perfect timing. And connection isn't something you turn on only when it serves you. When someone consistently consumes your presence but withholds theirs, that's not business. That's imbalance. At first, she tries to be understanding. She tells herself everyone is struggling. She lowers expectations. She minimizes her needs. And that's the moment she catches herself shrinking again to keep someone comfortable. That's when the shift happens. She stops over giving, stops chasing replies, stops making space for people who refuse to make space for her, not dramatically, not angrily, just decisively, because she finally understands that availability is a form of care and absence is a message. So she listens, and in that listening, she chooses alignment over attachment. She chooses mutuality over memories. She chooses relationships where presence is consistent, not convenient. And without an announcement, without confrontation, she quietly steps back, making room for people who don't disappear when she needs them most. The fifth type of person wise women cut off silently is the one who consistently invalidates her reality, the minimizer, the gaslighter, the person who hears your pain and responds with your overreacting. It wasn't that bad. You're too sensitive. This is one of the most dangerous connections because it erodes you quietly. There's no shouting, no obvious cruelty, just a steady dismissal of your inner world. And over time, you stop trusting yourself. You second guess your instincts. You rehearse conversations in your head, wondering how to explain your feelings better, softer, smaller, so they'll finally be understood. Wise women eventually recognize this truth. Anyone who repeatedly denies your emotional experience is teaching you to abandon yourself. And that's a cost too high. She realizes that understanding shouldn't require translation, that pain doesn't need permission to be real, that love listens, it doesn't debate your humanity. So she stops trying to convince, stops defending her feelings like they're on trial, stops explaining why something hurt, not because she's weak, but because she's done negotiating her truth. Silence becomes her clarity. Distance becomes her safety. She no longer hands her inner life to someone who treats it like an inconvenience because she understands this deeply now. Validation is not agreement. It's respect. And when respect is missing, wisdom doesn't argue, wisdom withdraws. She walks away quietly, carrying her truth intact. And in that quiet exit, she makes the most radical choice of all. She believes herself. The sixth type of person wise women cut off silently is the one who thrives on chaos, the drama carrier, the emotional wildfire, the person for whom peace feels boring and conflict feels like oxygen. This relationship is loud on the inside, even when it looks calm on the outside. There's always something wrong, someone to blame, a problem that needs to be dissected, replayed, and relived again and again. Wise women notice how their nervous system never rests around this person, how their shoulders stay tense, how their heart is always bracing. At first, she mistakes intensity for depth. She confuses emotional volatility with honesty. She tells herself this is just who they are. But over time, she realizes something sobering. Chaos is not authenticity, it's dysregulation. And peace should not feel like betrayal. Wise women learn that constant drama is not a sign of passion. It's a sign of unhealed wounds spilling onto everyone nearby. And while compassion matters, so does containment. Because you cannot heal in an environment that keeps you activated. So she stops engaging in every conflict, stops reacting to every provocation, stops explaining herself to someone who feeds on misunderstanding, not to win, but to regulate. Her silence is not avoidance. It's discernment. She chooses calm over chemistry, stability over adrenaline, and she understands that walking away from chaos is not giving up. It's growing up. Without a scene, without a final argument, she gently removes herself because her life no longer has room for emotional emergencies that aren't hers. And in choosing peace, she chooses the kind of strength that doesn't shake when the noise gets loud. The seventh type of person wise women cut off silently is the one who benefits from her self-doubt, the subtle underminer, the person who questions her choices just enough to keep her unsure, hesitant, and dependent. This isn't overt control. It's quiet erosion. Comments disguised as concern. Are you sure you can handle that? I just don't want you to get hurt. Maybe you're aiming too high. And each sentence lands like a pebble in her confidence. Small, but cumulative. Wise women notice how they start shrinking their dreams in these spaces, how they soften their certainty, how they look for permission to trust what they already know. And that's the moment awareness breaks through. Anyone who needs you uncertain in order to stay relevant is not rooting for your growth. Here's the hard truth: love does not plant doubt and call it care. Support does not weaken your spine, and guidance does not require you to abandon your intuition. So she stops seeking advice there, stops sharing early ideas, stops exposing tender hopes to someone who handles them carelessly, not with bitterness, but with boundaries, because she understands that confidence is fragile when it's becoming, and it must be protected. Her silence is not secrecy. It's stewardship. She chooses voices that expand her, not second guess her. She chooses relationships where her clarity is celebrated, not challenged. And without confrontation, without explanation, she quietly steps away, refusing to keep company with anyone who feels safer when she doubts herself. That quiet choice becomes an act of self-trust. And self-trust changes everything. The eighth type of person wise women cut off silently is the one who only loves the version of her that overfunctions. The person who praises her strength but ignores her softness, who relies on her resilience while quietly resenting her need for rest. This relationship feels flattering at first. She's the strong one, the capable one, the dependable one, the one everyone leans on. And for a while, that identity feels like purpose. Until one day she's tired, until she needs help, until she says, I can't hold this right now. And suddenly, the warmth disappears. Wise women notice this shift. How love turns conditional the moment they stop performing strength. How support evaporates when they show vulnerability instead of competence. And that's when the truth lands hard. They were valued for what they provided, not for who they are. Here's the awakening. Strength that is demanded is not strength that is honored. And relationships that only work when you are carrying everything are not safe places to rest. So she stops probing, stops over functioning, stops rescuing. She lets the silence reveal who stays when she's human instead of heroic. And she doesn't chase the ones who leave. This isn't rebellion, it's reclamation. She begins choosing relationships where her softness is protected, not punished, where her worth doesn't disappear when she slows down. And without explanation, without resentment, she quietly steps away from anyone who only knows how to love her when she's exhausted. Because wise women understand this, real love doesn't require you to be unbreakable. It simply asks you to be real. The ninth type of person wise women cut off silently is the one who refuses to grow. The emotionally stagnant, the person who keeps repeating the same patterns, telling the same stories, making the same promises while expecting different results. This is one of the most heartbreaking separations because it's not about lack of love, it's about lack of movement. Wise women notice how they keep evolving, learning, healing, taking responsibility, while the other person stays anchored to who they were years ago. Same excuses, same blame, same unwillingness to look inward. At first, she waits, she encourages, she models change, she believes her growth will inspire theirs. But eventually, she understands a painful truth. You cannot drag someone into maturity, and love does not mean waiting forever for potential to become reality. There's a grief that comes with outgrowing someone, a quiet mourning for the future you hoped you'd share. And wise women allow that grief without letting it trap them, because staying connected to stagnation eventually requires self-betrayal. So she stops pushing, stops reminding, stops having the same circular conversations that go nowhere. Not with contempt, but with acceptance. Acceptance that growth must be chosen, not demanded. Her silence is not giving up, it's letting go. She chooses forward motion. She chooses relationships that meet her where she's going, not where she's been. And without an argument, without a final ultimatum, she gently releases what refuses to evolve. Because wise women know this growth is not optional when it comes to intimacy. And anyone unwilling to grow with you will eventually require you to shrink. The final truth wise women live by is this: cutting someone off silently is not cruelty, it's clarity. By the time she goes quiet, she has already tried understanding, patience, communication, compassion, and grace. Silence is never her first language, it's her last. Wise women don't disappear to make a point. They disappear to keep themselves intact. They've learned that not everyone deserves an explanation, because not everyone listens with the intention to understand. Some listen only to respond. Some listen only to resist. And some don't listen at all, so she stops making announcements, stops writing long messages that reopen wounds, stops chasing closure from people who benefit from confusion. Because she understands something powerful now: closure is an inside job. Her boundaries become quieter, but stronger. Her circle becomes smaller, but safer. And her life becomes lighter the moment she stops carrying relationships that require her to betray herself. This is the quiet power of boundaries. No fights, no ultimatums, no scorched earth, just a calm decision to no longer participate in what harms her spirit. And here's the ending that matters most: when a wise woman walks away silently, she is not losing people, she is finding herself, she is choosing peace over chaos, alignment over attachment, self-trust over self-sacrifice. She doesn't look back with anger, she looks forward with integrity. Because the loudest proof of healing isn't confrontation, it's consistency. And the strongest women you'll ever meet don't explain why they left. They simply don't return.